maybe a little bit of a warning. It's time to rant college football playoff here on Big Nation. We are at such a tipping point right now with the college football playoff and the future of the college football playoff starting in 2026. And really, the SEC is sitting on the pendulum on this thing, and they've got to make a decision. Now, for the longest time, it looked like Tony Petitti, Greg Sankey, the Big Ten, and the SEC, it looked like they were in lockstep. It looked like they wanted the 4-4-2-2-1-1 college football playoff model. And the more I looked at it, the more I'm like, yeah, I am also in favor of the 4-4-2-2-1-1 college football playoff model. But recent meetings in the SEC with coaches, and those coaches coming out of those meetings, maybe there's a little bit of a different tune being sung from our friends down south. Because coming out of that meeting, it sounds like they're in favor of a 5+11 college football playoff format, and now things are maybe as uncertain as they've been in recent memory. 5+11 would continue to rig the system for the SEC. It would continue to have to spin the advantage towards the schools down south, because they're not going, the SEC is not going to a ninth conference game unless we go to a 4-4-2-2-1-1 college football playoff format. At these SEC meetings, pamphlets were handed out to select members of the media talking about this SEC gauntlet of a schedule. 8 games compared to the Big Ten's 9 games. Even the Big 12's 9 games in their conference schedule as well. They were talking about certain metrics like strength of record. They were talking about an ESPN-backed metrics as well. I think that's what Bill Connolly's SP Plus, who is employed over there by ESPN. Folks, let me say this as bluntly, let me say this as clearly as I possibly can. That is propaganda at its purest form. Distributing media to influence the media to gain positivity, I guess I maybe put that in quotes, favorability in the court of public opinion. They are openly trying to influence the media to be able to spin it, to be able to get what they want. And what they want, specifically it's the coaches, right, coming out of this meeting, what they want is an easier path. What they want is the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance is not good for the future of college football. When I saw what I saw coming out of these recent SEC meetings, first thought that came to my head, and I believe I tweeted this, I said, this reeks of desperation. This reeks of them wanting to continue to rig the system in their favor because they know that they are losing that long-held grip over complete control of the sport. Greg Sankey is going, and he's talking on multiple interviews, and he's been more upfront on camera, certainly, than Tony Petitti has. But right now, especially, the SEC look like they're going through a little bit of a media blitz to try to influence people that this is the way. And the way has been rigging the system in their favor because they play one less conference game, and they fill it with an absolute patsy. The main purpose of those pamphlets were talking about strength of record and the gauntlet that is their schedule. And they want to really change the way and the criteria that the committee looks at ranking teams, which tells you what? They want an increased role for the college football playoff committee because they know. They know it, man. You know it. I know it. They know it. Everybody knows it. The more the committee is involved, the more the SEC can spin it. We say it at the beginning of every single season. SEC teams, Texas A&M, Missouri, whoever is constantly overranked. There's always a big handful of SEC teams in the top 25. So now Kentucky is another example that's kind of been in there and a little bit overranked in some years as well. So now when an 8th-ranked SEC team loses to a 24th-ranked Kentucky, for example, early in the season, Kentucky's now overrated at number 15, and now, that 8th-ranked SEC team just so happened to lose to a ranked SEC team, so now their drop isn't as far. Folks, if you can't see it, open your eyes. Open your eyes. The SEC is losing their grip on the sport. They are desperate where the Big Ten is confident. But now is the time, I think, for Tony Petitti. He's been a couple of years on this job, and we are at such a tipping point throughout all of this. I think this is a time for him to speak up. This is a time for him to really assert his control within this whole college football space right now, whether publicly or privately. And that, I think, goes into my desperation as well. The SEC has been very public with all of this. Name one time, maybe one time, where you've seen Tony Petitti do a television interview outside of the Big Ten Network at Media Days. Name a time. I interviewed Tony Petitti at Media Days. I would never be able to interview Tony Petitti outside of Media Days. He doesn't go on the Dan Patrick Show like Greg Sankey does. He doesn't go on some of these other shows because I think he's someone that maybe communicates a little bit more privately and a little bit more confidently, maybe behind the scenes as well. But this is a time, I think, for him to speak up. Because right now, if the SEC is shifting towards another model, which the Big 12 is supporting, I'm sure the ACC is also in that camp as well. Now it's time for him to really enhance his voice and really enhance his spot speaking within the leaders of college football, certainly right now. I don't know exactly where Greg Sankey sits with all of these things, right? He has a lot of people. He's got university presidents. He's got athletic directors. Coaches is just one segment of people that he has to deal with right now. But folks, they're the pivot point. The SEC is the pivot point. We know the SEC and the Big Ten are really in control of this thing. It'd be very curious to note that if the SEC is one way and if the Big Ten is other way, and the conferences have basically signed their lives away for these two conferences to really decide what the format and what the future is going to look like, if those two are split, then what? Then I think we've really got a very, 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 very interesting situation on our hands. The elimination, folks, of the committee, the elimination of as much bias as we can is what's best for college football. I know there's some folks out there that don't like automatic qualifiers. And I get it, man. I get it. But this is the simplest way. This is the most effective way to eliminate as much of this bias that has been in the sport for as long as it has been in the sport. A 4-4-2-2-1-1 college football playoff format sets up for this thing. And we've been saying this since Bowls and Polls. We've been saying this from the BCS to get this thing decided on the football field and try to establish as much, I know it's very difficult now, but as much of a level playing field as possible. I don't know how it's going to happen, but this SEC propaganda, this SEC media blitz, this SEC spin, something like this would only happen in college football, man, where there is no central body to really check the power of somebody like Greg Sankey. I think this postseason has the potential to be really, really awesome. But like most things that are standing in the way of awesome, there's the SEC as a giant freaking roadblock.